Oh, which one?
Dark Knight Death Metal, which is the Batman Who Laughs sort of continuation from the previous.
Oh, I've been reading Vagabond myself.
Ooh, Vagabond's cool. I like that.
Really good. Yeah.
Gotta like Samurai though. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 649. The difference between comic book and manga fight scenes. This should be fun. I like these kinds of conversations. It's great to compare visual styles or visual, I don't know, books in general across the world when they're coming out in the same time frame like today. So that's always nice. This is from the person or the YouTuber called Martian Metal. Interesting. He has only 1.5 thousand subs, but this thing came out this year in March. It's got 188,000 views. Good for you, sir. So I'm expecting an awesome video that's only 9 minutes long, and we're going to get really into the joys of Western and Eastern comics, specifically fight scenes. But there's all these differences, as you guys might already know. Most Japanese comics called manga are in black and white. The creator, the writer, is also the artist. They're called mangakas, which is, talk about being a genius. You're doing two jobs. I imagine that they would hire someone to do coloring, if they'd even do coloring, or inking. That's a second job right there. Inking is a whole other discipline. So it's a lot of work. And then when you look at Western comics, one guy does the writing, one guy does the drawing, one guy does the coloring, one guy does the inking, one guy does all the whatever publishing. I don't know how it works exactly in the West. Every publishing house is different. But yeah, we could talk about styles. We could talk about action scenes. The action lines in manga is a very well-known technique of showing distance and perspective of like someone running really quickly. But they do action lines sometimes in Western comics, so I'm sure there's some influence there. And I've been reading manga since the 90s, and I always am amazed by the level of detail. So I would argue it has nothing to do with the actual format itself, whether it's Eastern or Western. It's the skill of the artist to say, I'm going to draw this sort of pose. Because in Western comics, I was reading a Western comic yesterday, it's big on poses. It's big on this perspective and the action scene to get the full extension of the fists and the legs, and Batman's like jumping in the air, and physics and gravity be damned. He's got this ridiculous pose, and there's this rope flying in the background somehow that explains that he's not flying, and he's punching some arch villain of his. He's also in another crazy pose, and he gets a punch into Batman, but Batman really takes him down. So there's all these great crazy poses of superhuman physiques hitting each other, whereas in manga, it's pretty down to earth. Even with Dragon Ball, even though those guys are really well built, they're all just mesomorphic little men punching the crap out of each other in space and flying.
Yes.
So,
well, I mean, like, I like the first Dragon Ball series where it was more like martial arts. I like that. I love this overpowered like spirit shit. Like that was like the peak Dragon Ball experience.
Oh yeah.
But I've been, like, as I said at the beginning, I have been reading Vagabond. It's a samurai story. Like, I think it's loosely based on Miyamoto Musashi's story, but it's a quite, I would say, like, the fight choreography is quite well done. Like, you can feel the motion. Like, the artist is just so good at depicting like dynamic movements. It's kind of like, I would say, like the book version of Cowboy Bebop.
Oh really?
Yeah, because like it's like so active. Like, you can just, it's a well depicted, like storyboarded fight scene, I would say. It's just like, like how they're gonna like begin and end. That's kind of good too.
It did make me think. What you mentioned was about South Korean comics, where they do very long, even web comics, very long form style of artwork. They're fully colored, and it's called manhwa. The most popular one I know is called Solo Leveling, which is basically an inverse isekai. There's
the inverse isekai.
Yeah, the monsters or the dungeons come to Earth, and people become superhumans and fight all these invading aliens. But the style is so dynamic and so crazy and so colorful that it's basically superheroes for South Koreans. So it's their version of DC and Marvel, but completely different. The themes are all pretty much the same. This is the difference between Japanese and South Korean. South Korean has like, okay, you've got, superhero or supernatural powers with a little bit of isekai, a little bit of the video game stuff, but then you got a little bit of romance. It's like this multi-genre story. Whereas Japan has just every genre, and it's just that genre with a little bit of that, maybe a subgenre, but it's very specific. And then we have, of course, American comics, which are mostly all superhuman or superhero comics there. So there's lots of differences. I'm sure the YouTuber will get into it and hopefully focus on the combat more as opposed to start rambling and complaining about fans not being into Western comics because they're too masculine or whatever the silly ideology of the day is. So anyway, I think we're all ready to go. I think we have Whisp here. Whisp, you there, buddy?
Hello.
Hey, all right, Whisp is there. Because I know you guys said you might not make it, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but thank you for popping in. And of course, Mike, thanks for popping in, Mike.
No problem.
All righty, so this is 9 minutes almost.
You know what? Like, I feel like the premise is more acceptable than the previous videos we have been covering in the past week or so.
Yes.
So maybe we're gonna get something out of this video.
Thank God it's specific.
I know.
Thank God it's so like narrowing down the focus of a topic.
It's not that like I didn't like this thing because they said that my thumbnail was really good and I'm brave.
and I'm a binary non-sexual whatever. You're like, what? Excuse me, why are we bringing this up? Yeah. Anyway, action scenes should be right up our alley, so here we go.
Western comic books and Japanese manga have a lot in common while also having a lot of differences, like how manga is usually read right to left, with comic books being left to right. How most manga and characters are usually written by one person or a group of people, while comic book characters and storylines can be written by many other writers. How most manga are usually black and white, while most comics are in color, usually being black and white if it's for the purpose of the story. But one thing that people don't usually see the difference between
well, it's because it's cheaper. So if they want to spend the money and they know they're going to sell a lot, they will spend the money. It's just that simple.
Inking is just so expensive. Like I know it's from following LiteratureDevil and like how much he was talking about, how much he had to prepare to get an artist firsthand to like do the inking, and then like quality check that like the people who were funding the comic book that he was doing, Dr. Alpha, is up to the quality that we would demand.
Yeah.
So like he did it twice. So that's how crazy it is.
Yeah, the prices for colored is, I'd say, maybe 3 times as much than if you were to do black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, manga is usually here $5 to $7, and I'm currently reading a comic that is more or less manga format in regards to the book size. Has about 140 pages, and is fully colored, and that thing is $15.
Wow!
Oh, so it's like a volume.
Volume, yes.
Oh, cool.
All right.
comic book are the fight scenes. Now I know that every comic and manga is different, but what I and what a lot of other people notice when reading both is that there usually is a difference between the two. And of course every fight scene has its own context and whatnot. Now I am not at all saying that comic book fight scenes are bad. What I want to talk about is the differences that can be found between the two in most comics and manga, and how both are good and can learn from each other. And no, this won't be another one of those videos just shitting on Western comic books, saying that manga will always be better, comics are dying, etc. I think comic books are amazing, and I don't think they'll be taken over by manga anytime soon, like how so many people believe.
Okay, so that's nice. He's admitting that this is not some crazy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's nice to get this out of the way.
The West is destroying civilization. And it's like, yeah, okay. We get it. We're doing a bad job in the art world.
Hard focus on a topic. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's manga that has badly drawn fight scenes.
Oh yeah, I mean the original version of One Punch Man, that is all scribbles. So
Yeah, but that. Yeah, but there was a webcomic that was just scribbles. I think that's another level of things.
The guy got actually pretty good at the stuff by now. I have like checked like some comparisons, like how his art style have evolved.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I'm currently reading is Monstrous, and I am not overwhelmed by the writing, let's say. But in regards to fight scenes, just to talk about that, is sometimes I have no fucking clue what's going on, and then it also jumps scenes in the panels where I think that there's at least one panel missing, maybe 3, and that is very janky.
yeah,
And I think with the quality level that this this comic advertises you with on the cover and inside, I think that should not happen. Aside from other things, like the quality dropped quite significantly in the second volume. Like the first one, damn good. I was overwhelmed because and that's why I bought it, because it was visually stunning. And then after that, it just falls rather flat, and it rather seems like it's more of a pretentious art style where you have fantasy world that the author came up with herself. I don't think it makes enough sense with some of the choices. But combines that with this intricate, what is it called? Is it Art Deco, the 1920s Golden Age style?
Sure,
Yeah. Puts that everywhere, and that is relatively intricate. But then other backgrounds, like the walls of when they're on a ship, and there's these pipes in the background, you see that's just a sketch that's just two-dimensional. There's absolutely no depth to it, and what the fuck? And this other part of the picture or other panels are overly intricate. It's I don't want to say fraud outright, but it's very inconsistent in its focus on where the art is on the same level, and I think you should have a consistent quality in your entire work.
That's an issue of style, which I think is an inherent problem with the artist per se. I have problems with Western comics that the setting is never, it's too fantastical. I was reading Dark Knight Heavy Metal, which is the sequel to Dark Knight Metal, and we're talking about the multiverse. So you already don't know where physically am I, and what they do is they do lots of covers and they do lots of versions of villains. And it's like, oh, there's Batman who's like the man bat, but there's like 7 versions of an evil Batman in the same panel. And you're just like, what is happening? Plus, this is a JLA comic. So you already have one page dedicated to like Batman versus whomever. The next page is Aquaman and Deadshot, and they're underwater somewhere, and you're just like, what is happening? The next page is Wonder Woman, and you're just like, whoa, this is too, like the pacing is just like boom, boom, boom. And you're just, where's up? Are they flying? Are they swimming? Are they breathing? Like every panel is just, your brain is like, I don't know where I am. And the multiverse confuses it even more. So it's fun for the artist because they just have carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want. But the reader is just a bit lost with which way is up and who is doing what.
I had a similar thing with the comic I mentioned a few episodes ago. I don't know the English title. It's a Franco-Belgian one. The artist sounds Spanish though. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful line work. Good coloring too. But there's also some, like, it's a science fiction thing, and you have some air fights between factions, and that's also difficult to tell what's going on, who is who, because it's a one-shot story as well. So it's relatively quick, told on I think 80 pages and big pages, A4, and in that one, I don't have, what I want to get at is a perspective problem. In that comic, I didn't have the perspective problem. This old one is from was from 89, and this US comic that in part seems to pretend to be a manga. I have a big perspective problem with some characters, the way they're in the scene, and I have that with US comics in general, where the characters seem to be floating in the scene and don't really seem to make sense all the time. While in manga, on average, from what I've read, the posture and perspective of a character in a scene makes more sense. Like when you have the big shots where you see the surroundings and everything. I know there seems to be a perspective problem with Western comic artists, which is what I would say.
All right. Here is,
and that then leads to problems in fight scenes.
Here is Judd Appetite. Thank you, Judd, for the $1. I'm a little worried he's only going to be talking about stuff like Marvel and DC when he says comic fight scenes. Comics does not only mean superheroes. Comic is a medium that has a wide array of genre. That's true. So I don't know what he's going to focus on, but he's obviously going to deal with popular ones. So I'm assuming Marvel and DC as well. So, but yeah, it's only a 9-minute video. You can't do everything. So anyway, let's go.
The main difference I notice when it comes to the two are the impacts. The impact frames, the action lines, and the effects. Usually when there's a fight scene in the comic, especially between two superpowered characters, you ironically won't see much of the impact, but rather the after effect of it. Now of course there are a lot of pages where you can see the impact, but you'll normally see the after effects just as much.
Ooh, what the hell? That head is too big.
Contact. Like when Superman was fighting Wonder Woman, when he backhands her, you just see Wonder Woman's body flying back and Superman's arm extended out. No wind up, no moment of impact, just her flying back all of a sudden.
Yeah, it looks like something's missing.
Yeah, but that's fine.
It looks so comedic.
Yeah, because first off, it's Superman. He's super fast. Two, you don't want to. If Superman winds up.
Oh, so you missed the because Superman is so fast. We skipped the panel.
Well, there is an action line. There's an action line of his arc, right? You see his hand, his whole arm start.
Yeah. You can see it like a half circle. Yeah.
But if he winds up for a slap, her head's gonna spin. Like she's gonna smack her around.
He didn't wind up. This is just a normal movement.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Fly swat.
You cannot have Superman wind up and hit a fellow friend, or maybe she's mind controlled, or whatever the case is. I don't know. That would be dangerous. And if you do that and he's not serious, then it looks stupid. Why would he wind up to punch a hole through Wonder Woman? It doesn't make sense. So.
Woman moment.
But I get what he's trying to say. It's like, where's all the... Because we have black and white, and you have those... I wouldn't say energy, but it's like the action of the fist motion, and that envelops this sort of like a Baf Pow Zowie effect that you would see on an Adam West Batman episode, where they actually show that on the screen and they incorporate that into the body, and you're like, okay, it's just a stylistic choice of doing that level of physicality. How would that make you feel? How does that look? It's the artist drawing things in a stylistic way as opposed to just having normal body proportions as we see here. So I don't see that as a problem. That's just a style choice.
Flying back. And this type of movement can oftentimes be seen throughout Western comics, but you can actually work well with this type of motion. Now this video won't be about degrading fight scenes in comics. There are of course many fights that show what I'm talking about and highlighting these things. When a mind-controlled Hulk fights the Thing, you can understand how hard these two are hitting each other, and even without knowing anything about either of them, you can tell that Hulk still overpowers Thing, even though Thing is still insanely strong. My favorite page is when Thing finally is able to land his strongest hit right on the Hulk's chin. You already know that Hulk's jaw is just destroyed along with Thing's arm, with all the bio-armored rocks that cover the Thing just exploding right off of him. No need for the action lines or bursts that I feel like manga can actually use a little bit too much. Another one of my favorite fight scenes is Superman fighting Doomsday in Superman Doomed. The Doomsday that had originally...
It's, I think manga does not use the impact sounds on the word sounds on for impacts as much as comics does.
Well,
It does use them for sound effects,
yeah,
but I don't think it uses them a lot for like in the sense of what are these stupid lines? Pow or something.
yeah, exactly.
When something hits something.
Think in terms of, imagine a video game didn't have particle effects or light effects or any kind of effects to show impact of like bullets or punches or whatever. It would look weird and boring, like what you're doing has no impact on the object you're attacking. So if you're thinking in terms of black and white, how do you make this panel pop? How do you make it come at you? You have to use perspective, you have to use shading, you have to use lighting, but then you have to use techniques like stylizing. What would a punch feel like, and draw that out so you see the shaking of the head in various states, or wobbling, the action lines. There's all kinds of techniques. But if it's in color and it's not as stylized, then it's like, okay, we have to make normal representations of the human body, well, obviously superhuman bodies, and make that look, okay, this is Superman. He can't be wobbling. He's freaking Superman. He's super dense. He can't, his fist can't break apart unless there's something that is comparable to his fist that can be broken apart. So you have to have that acceptance of the physical world of the comic or the narrative, and that is part and parcel with Western comics. Whereas manga, super deformed. Suddenly characters are turned into little babies, and they're making a joke off the side, and they come back. Like it's sort of like rubber. It's more watery than it is in Western comics. Not to say the Western comic can't do that, but that's just not the style.
Those deformations also don't work when you use full coloring.
Yeah, how would you do that exactly?
They rely a lot on the empty line, on the black and white line work.
They have to use proper stylistic techniques to make it look more interesting and more action packed, which is fine. It's great. I think that's a very good use of real estate.
Killed Superman was sent to the Phantom Zone to get rid of him permanently. But the thing is, that specific Doomsday was only a larva. Despite being eons old and living on Krypton before the Kryptonians did, he was still a young larva. And despite the fact that the Phantom Zone is a timeless dimension, he still grew into his adult stage.
Okay, but now he's talking about narrative and storytelling, not
that's content.
Visual.
To which I would have to question, has anyone ever thrown Doomsday into a black hole, and what happened then?
Yeah.
Well, he saw the black hole sun.
Now being stronger than before, strong enough to literally punch his way out of the Phantom Zone. So after crippling Wonder Woman, it's now up to Superman to fight him again, and this whole fight scene was just crazy. A thing that I love about comic books is that since they're usually in color, it highlights the atmosphere of the scene, like the grays and dark blues when Doomsday meets Wonder Woman on the ship, to the contrast of the pure black space with Superman's bright colors and the planets around them. And my favorite was the end, when Superman finally gets a good hold on Doomsday and tears him in half through the chest. Because this wasn't color like most comics, you can really see the damage that Superman did, highlighting the internals and torn muscle inside Doomsday, as he is literally just solid bone and muscle. Now of course manga can do the same thing, but I love the color in it as I believe it shows more of what's going on.
Yeah, this is where the sound effects on the page rather annoy me. They're too big, and especially those in the top left corner, they're just a standard gradient, and that bites with the rest of the coloring style.
I think you need those, the top left-hand corner. Like, I would not know those are 3 punches or 3 hits if there was not wham, wham, wham. Because looking at that, it's very hard to discern what's going on. So
My big problem is the one in the center. It's almost covering the what's going on.
Well, I understand, but it's showcasing that he's ripping his flesh when he's.
Is that a soft censorship?
In a way, yeah. The action noise word is hiding the violence. Yeah, you're right. So that's kind of clever. So I don't mind this technique, But imagine if it wasn't colored. Imagine this was purely line art with ink. You'd be like, okay, you can't draw every little detail of blood smear and popping, and like I wouldn't know, is that his cape or is that blood? It wouldn't pop out. So you have to be, okay, what the hell is he doing? Is he tearing the guy's arm off? How would you know? You'd have to show the arm. And just having Schlach, whatever that word is, it wouldn't be as effective. It would not pop.
Yeah, but there's also where the coloring helps, because when you do it just in black and white, you have to work differently with the shapes you have on the page.
Yeah, and of course the inking for the shadow has to be very specific as well, or else it'll look like sometimes like this. Like look at the level of detail on just his thigh, and if you take the color out, you take the gradient of blue, you're gonna get like this weird, not metallic, but this weird sort of stone-like leg-looking object. So you have to know how to use lighting and shadow. There's a whole technique. I bought a few books on drawing comics that there's a very specific technique that's like draw a metal person like Iron Man, and how the metal would look, because there's a very high contrast reflecting of white light on the top, the same way light would reflect in your eyes if there's a light source. There's a very dark specific undertone for the bottom of an object, and in between there's all these reflections of the environment, so you have to have like this weird sort of mirror-like polish in between all that. So it's very difficult to pull it off realistically, and that's why it takes a while to practice to how to draw metal, how to draw cloth, how to draw skin and bone. So when you have this level of detail, it really, really helps when you've got color. And if you try to draw Doomsday in manga style, or at least black and white, it will not look anywhere near as detailed. And that's why I go back to the manhwa, the South Korean comics, where they have these giant spreads, even bigger than this, lengthwise, not widthwise. This is like a two-page spread, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely a two-page spread, yeah.
That is just beautiful. Like the guy's jumping in the air, and he's got this pose going, he's got his weapon going, and something's on fire, someone's brightly lit, and the enemy's like, you see him falling. It's like, wow, this is a really cool action pose. And they just keep going. The whole fight scene is this massive chapter of monsters jumping around and doing superhuman things. So gorgeous artwork, whether it's Western or Eastern. It makes little stylistic difference to me.
Blood is purple and an orange background since it burned the environment around them. What a lot of mangas do is incorporate things like special effects, impacts, and action lines in their fight scenes, especially hand-to-hand scenes. I really love these scenes, and my favorite examples I want to use are from some of my favorite mangas, which is a lot. Kengan Ashura is all about fighting, mixed martial arts from fighters all over the world, and the artist, Doromian, really knows how to capture and show the reader the weight, speed, and power of these fighters. Wakatsuki Takeshi vs. Julius Reinhold was basically an all-out display of power. A lot of impact effects, pure destruction, and of course, the moments of impact that can be used so well to make a fight scene just a tad more interesting, especially if both characters have super strength. Like when they collide their fists, you can see the ripple coming from their hands and the shockwave they created. And when Julius smacks Takeshi, you can see his skin basically whiplashing like it should be. A lot of fight scenes in Baki the Grappler also have this. When Takeshi makes his finishing blow.
Look at that kick! Oh my god!
Yeah.
The kick is impossible. Okay.
That is broken. That leg, you can put that to the hospital.
I think his pelvis is snapped. Yeah, there's no way you could do that.
That leg is dislocated out of the pelvis.
The 360-degree ass.
Oh, we got a super chat. Sorry, Legacy. Thank you for the $9.99. You know what gripes me? Doomsday isn't as unkillable as many make him out to be when all you need is to mess with his physiology directly. His creator and his origin was a moron, and not thinking that. There's many iterations and writers who take Doomsday. So sometimes he's nearly invincible. Other times there's like a whole army of him. They're all clones. And they get wiped out.
If throwing him into a sun or a black hole doesn't kill him, the problem doesn't seem to be his physiology.
it's a bit. He's basically like the concept of a Super Saiyan. He adapts to whatever environment he's in, just almost instantly. So he grows spikes and all this crap. So it's a weird. I can't remember. Was it built by one of Superman's villains to be like the best Superman killer?
Darkseid.
Darkseid created it. Yeah. It's a crazy story, and you have to have these opponents for Superman, or else Superman doesn't work anymore. But back to Baki, who has the most unbelievable proportions of the human body I've ever seen in manga, and fight scenes which are absolutely nuts. So, yeah, this is why you read Baki. It's so over the top that you're like, whoa! And the anime is tame in comparison, but even that is pretty bad. So, yeah, no, it's awesome.
He rounded Julius in the chin, shattering it and winning the fight. The wave of motion really highlights the weight and power that kick had, and the impact effect, essentially just blocking out Julius's face, makes it seem like it was a flash of light, and it can leave the reader in suspense for a bit, wondering what his face will look like right after the hit. Both Kengan Ashura and its sequel have some of the best hand-to-hand fight scenes I've seen in a long time. But what about scenes where they aren't just fighting close-range hand-to-hand, when there's two superpowered characters doing more than just punching and moving to the side? Some of my favorite examples are from Dandadan and One Punch Man. Dandadan has some of the craziest fight scenes I've seen in a while. The environmental destruction, after images, basically everything about almost every fight scene is just solid. Recently, the main character Okarun, who has the powers of the Spirit Turbo Granny, basically got jumped by a couple aliens. One alien that resembles a xenomorph quite a bit is the best physical fighter.
That's a xenomorph?
I think he's just
not
saying
really.
that due to the posture.
The head is not even close.
It looks
Yeah,
like a human.
he's just saying that because of the posture of
Okay.
half
Looks like some henchman from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. Just bending over. Okay.
Yeah,
just to do a pose with the arms.
He
he
doesn't
has to take a leak.
He's doing something.
And this panel is probably my favorite.
Whoa.
A spreadsheet.
That's the
of them.
pose.
They look like
That's
a bunch
cool.
of clones fighting, when
Yeah.
in reality those are after images. You can see the failed attempts of a strike being either dodged or countered by both sides. It really does highlight the speed of which these two are fighting at, which is basically their thing.
Oh, I get why
This
he
manga
called
has
it the
some intense fight
xenomorph.
scenes,
Yeah, the
and if
mouse.
you like things like aliens, cryptids, spirits,
Oh.
lost tapes, things like that, read this manga. I do plan on making a video about this relatively
Ancient
soon.
Aliens
Now,
is a
of
manga?
course, most Western American comic books
Yes.
are about superpowered characters, like Marvel, DC, and Image Comics. A manga that's full of superpowered characters and has some amazing fight scenes is, of course, One Punch Man, illustrated by Yusuke Murata. Currently, Saitama and Tatsumaki are fighting, but before that was the insane fight between Cosmic Garu and Saitama. It was at this point where no matter what, Garu couldn't even hurt Saitama no matter how much he tried. That was until God was able to take control over him. He gave Garu the ability to control all energy in the universe and being able to copy abilities, causing literal atomic bombs and neutron stars to go off during the fight. When Saitama finally decides to let loose, and with Garu being able to copy him, their fight resulted in destruction of billions of stars, basically making a void within space. It sent them launching all the way to one of Jupiter's moons. Saitama would display his physical strength by literally ripping the moon apart, and Garu would show his speed, bouncing off the millions of debris to attack Saitama. When Saitama lets out a sneeze, it resulted in a giant hole being blasted right into Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system. It was so strong, it was literally able to expose Jupiter's core. But then some time travel stuff happened and all that was reversed. Well, right before Garu transformed. I still wonder how the Earth isn't just destroyed, because the moon should be knocked off its gravitational pole, and the magnetic field should be messed up because
Just don't think about it.
Yeah, this is not to be taken seriously.
One Punch Man isn't made for scientific experiments.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
They're used to it. They named the cities after letters, after all.
The cities keep getting destroyed. They're like, yeah, city 4.
Okay, 24 million people dead. Okay, yeah, okay. We'll
It's
just build
kind of
another
missing
city.
that, like, he's not even mentioning Berserk. It's not that it's like famous for its fight scenes, but like it's like a really good fight choreography as well.
Yeah,
Like he doesn't seem to mention like any one that is like a sword fight
he
shown
said
or stuff like that.
he said that fights weren't based off close range. It's like, what do you think they're doing? They're punching each. They're still punching each other. Like, what do you?
Yeah.
What's the difference? So
Like, I would have also thought that the go-to manga to bring up for well choreographed fight scenes that are well, that you can read well of what's going on is Full Metal Alchemist.
well, there's all kinds of really good boxing manga that do really good fight scenes. So, and some of them were made into anime, so you could even use those. But it's really dependent on the style of the mangaka and what they were influenced by to use action lines and motion. Like they showed the blur technique they use on the manga, which is also in Western comics as well. So there's nothing special about that per se. There's just a lot of it. That's because the focus of the narrative is boxing or fighting or whatever the case is. So this is more or less not so much comparing Western to Eastern comics. It's what does this artist know who happens to be doing a manga stuff. So he's influenced by manga that he's going to draw that way, as opposed to the style or the coloring or whatever. It's kind of like you're missing like why was this made this way. Like if this was made in Belgium or France, it would be a little different. But you'd still have action scenes that would be over the top and big and fantastical. So I want style to be an argument. I want like, hey, this mangaka does it this way, and this mangaka who throws a punch does it that way because of this, and it looks like something from the 80s. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Anyway.
Continental shaving. It can be explained later. Now, both comic books and manga have some of the best fight scenes, and besides fights, like just shots of environments, characters, etc., they
Vagabond.
both are amazing, and I don't believe one...
I think that was Vagabond. Yeah.
Was it?
I think it was. Let me rewind that.
Let's check
Now,
it.
both comic books and manga have some of the best fight scenes, and besides fights, like just shots of environments,
Yes, that is definitely Vagabond.
Yeah,
That's Miyamoto.
Pretty cool.
characters,
Yeah.
etc., they both are amazing, and I don't believe one is better than the other like so many people believe. But when it comes down to
It's
specifically
always
fight
an
scenes,
individual thing.
I believe both comic book and manga artists should learn from each other.
Okay.
As an artist, there is a lot
Yep.
I've learned from both sides. I've learned about paying attention to the background that a lot of comic artists do, and things like dynamic poses that a lot of manga artists do. There really is so much...
Yeah, with this. This is. I like this coloring, but this thing he showed before, this one here. In part, the coloring looks really nice and well shaded, like the arc. Make more mutants. That thing. Cool, but the steps on the water, that is so flat and lacking detail, like lacking bit of dirt or something, that it looks just like artificial plastic put on the page. It's like incomplete. The coloring was incomplete. The line work was incomplete. That's what I mean.
Well,
It's not even in its own picture. It is not consistent.
the perspective makes it
consistent
look like a
quality.
staircase, but it's actually not. So my brain is like, what is this going up, or is this just the angle of the shot? Like I'm a little. It's like is it magical? Is the water being suspended? Yeah,
It's because the steps in the back, they're not really getting that much smaller than in the front, and that creates a perspective problem.
exactly. Yeah. The ones in the front
So-
are smaller. It's like, what is happening?
There are so many basic problems with this picture that
It looks good.
like in front the stuff, the grass and the flowers in front, that is amazing. That is great. And immediately you go one distance level back and it just becomes flat
yeah,
stuff.
if this was like a Secret of Mana level from above, it'd be like, oh, that looks cool. Looks kind of consistent. All the pixel art, all the same.
Yeah.
But because it's literally at a slightly above a normal perspective that someone would be standing at this area, it's like, is the water going up?
Yes, this is what I mean with there are basic problems when in quality consistency. Manga seems to retain its quality within a chapter or even a volume or the overall manga, or it increases over time as the mangaka improves in skill. And in Western comics, this is what stands out to me, to my stupid autistic eyes, way too often, and it just puts me off.
Yeah, I will say I've read mostly, like, not well produced manga, but manga that has mostly had many checks, that all the inking sort of takes care of all those perspective and proportion issues. Whereas I have a few manga that I read that I could tell the artist is rushing, or they're not as good with their perspective, let's say, of the human head, and they'll keep focusing on just doing forward shots of the face as opposed to a face from like a 45-degree angle from above to the side, and it really shows. It's like, oh, this guy didn't draw enough overhead shots or whatever. So there's a few of those I read. You could tell that it's like, yeah, this guy's not as consistent. But then there's like these artists that their understanding of perception, not perspective, perceiving a scene is like they could draw anything. They could just draw from any perspective, from any angle, and have a fight scene of a person wielding a sword from a whole different pose that you wouldn't even think of without action lines. Just as just normal realistic posing. That is so impressive that it's like this, and you see that, and that's what's visually impressive, regardless of all the dialogue and all the narration. So those books, I really you sit back and you're like, what? It takes me the extra 5 seconds to read the panel, because you're just taking it in. You're just like, whoa, look at all this detail, and that's different from, let's say, Berserk with Miura, who does amazing landscapes and foregrounds, and just like, whoa, big giant creatures and scenes of hell, or whatever. Like, whoa, like that's just like, you have to take a step back again. It's like, okay, this is a painting.
It's just like took like overboard with that.
Yeah. And it's different for every artist. That's why I always bring it back to, let's say, Ghost in the Shell, Masamune Shiro, or what's that guy's name from Oh My Goddess? Fujishima. They do so detailed technical drawings of machines, of motorbikes, you name it, anything that's technological. Their brain is just like, oh, here's a gear, and here's a bolt, and here's a thing that connects to it, and here's a little wire. It's like everything's just this really detailed machine. So it really comes down to how the artist perceives an object and whether or not they have the skill to flesh that out in a proper perspective. So that's where this is sort of like, if you get rid of the color here and you focus only on shadow and perspective, the artist and the inker would have done a lot different, I think. So anyway.
That a lot of comic artists do, and things like dynamic poses that a lot of manga artists do. There really is so much you can learn from both sides. And just me pointing out the difference between the fight scenes does not mean I'm saying one is better than the other. I love them both equally. But fact is, there is a difference between the two, but both sides are still amazing. And things can be learned from each other. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think in the comments.
Well, that was pretty fair. That was, nothing crazy. And not the most educated guy, but he was being honest. I really appreciate that. And he wasn't lying, or this is great, this isn't great. Like, no, they're all very good for their own way. That's true. So good for you, sir.
Yeah, especially compared with everything else we get. Pretty good video.
Absolutely, it's
amazing,
quite remarkable.
To have
after all those terrible takes,
to have a person who just honestly says what he believes without any bias. And he's appreciating art and going, yeah, I like this and I like that for different reasons. You're like, yeah, exactly. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, he got it.
The guy who reads the thing he loves understands it. It's like, wow, it's amazing.
Well, it seems that is a rarity in
Yeah, I know.
video making. Most people who seem to make videos about that stuff are just full of crap, and
like-
this guy isn't.
It's like I'm having a chocolate bar. I was like, wow, it tastes like sugar and chocolate and caramel. It's amazing. It's like, yes, you're right. Your senses work. Your tongue is functioning. Your brain is functioning. Fantastic.
And Martian Metal, if you see this, don't get this the wrong way. That is not meant to be denigrating or anything. But the thing is, all the other videos we get suggested, they are not able to do that.
Yeah, here on the Smudcast, we I don't want to call them retarded, but it's possible that
I would just go straight up.
Yesterday you did.
okay, yeah. In that case, there's something wrong with that person. But you know, you never know, and you don't want to offend someone. You just want to be like, okay, you either don't know what words mean, or how your eyes focus on like a solid object, like clearly, or how your ears work, or when you feel something and you're like, I feel sad, but I'm gonna think I'm melancholic. You're like, what? No, you saw a dead puppy. What do you want from it? It's sad. It's not melancholic. Like, oh, I remember a dead puppy when I was a kid. You're like, yeah, but that's not what's in the story. That's just what your memory is telling you. I don't care what you remember when you were a kid. I want what's on the screen. Can you focus on? Don't tell me. Oh, here we go. Backstory about when they were 4 and they. Oh God, please stop. Yeah, lots of subjective crap from a lot of people. So. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to get the non-anecdotal references and just say, "Look at the screen. See that action shot? That's great." Like, yeah, I agree. So picking up One Punch Man, there's the 2 versions. There's the scribbly one and there's the high production value one. Awesome. You're right. Doing well. Lots of great fight scenes there for sure. What was the other one with the crazy body proportions and the crazy angles of the spine and pelvis? Baki. Yeah, that is...
Baki, yeah.
Baki is...
For some reason, I was thinking about the Chainsaw Man, but like that's different.
That is... Oh, that's pretty awesome, too, for different reasons. You're right, yeah. So Baki is the one that I always reference. It's... If you want crazy characters with crazy body... And not magical stuff, but just supernatural, natural stuff. Like, just like, okay, there's no way this person's legs look like that. This just doesn't, it's not humanly possible unless you're like steroiding yourself up every day. So Baki's crazy, but it's fun. But yeah, no, Western comics, there's all kinds of great things there. And I don't know if I'd ever want to see an amalgamation, though. I don't think that's a good idea.
No.
Like, it's smart to say they can learn from each other, but at the same time, like, what exactly would they adopt, though? I don't know what they would pick up from each other properly. And you would have to think in terms of black and white. It's like, how do we make this good black and white? Would it be better if it was colors? There's lots of manga. I don't know if you guys have read manga lately, but fan translators, they will sometimes take a manga page and color it. And
yes, they have.
And I don't know if they're just bad at coloring, or manga was not designed. That particular manga page, as poignant and dramatic as it was not designed to be colored. So there's a little bit of a, like, you want to learn as much as you can to improve, but I don't know if the styles are going to work together.
Yeah, on that topic, actually, I have actually seen a few attempts at coloring Berserk panels, and they look terrible. Like, it's just the person who does them, they just don't understand like how those colors work and how they match. Because like the shading style of Miura was just so different. Like the dude could color, because like some of the first 2 pages of his chapters were colored, and the rest are just black and white. I don't know, but like it's just it would take so long if like someone would just like start coloring Berserk for reals. Like I just don't know like how it could be done.
It would take, you're doing an amazing landscape, or a picture of a tree, or a picture of the moon,
Mm.
and or a picture of the demon world, and it's just like, whoa, that'll take a whole data color. So it's pretty wild, if not a week. So it's awesome. I think there's something to learn. I just don't know what they would actually use. So anyway, guys, do we have any stream memes? I don't know if we would from this simple.
Yeah, we have.
Well, usually we have memes over shit, like dumb crap. And this was not dumb.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to make fun of here.
Yeah, but we have memes.
We still have memes. All right, we'll check it out. Let's see what we got. Behold, a new style is born. Okay. Hamburger shonen. It's so funny that spaghetti westerns are called that because they were directed by Italians, not necessarily. Imagine if people started calling Marvel stories hamburger shonen.
I'd rather go with hot dog shonen.
Hot dog?
Yeah, hamburgers
Hamburger.
are still inspired by German food. But hot dogs, I think, are inherently American.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm,
But even
no.
then, I'd still want a sausage. I'd want an actual Polish sausage on my hot dog. But that's just my tastes. All right, same as One Punch Man. Kinnikuman started off different and was later redrawn. Oh, very cool. So there's the webcomic, I'm assuming? Oh, I remember Kinnikuman. Yeah, I was animated. I remember that. And boom, look at that. Look at the nice line art. Very clean. Love it. Yeah, that's what happens when you get popular. You get your whole thing redone. The creator of Doomsday, who had no countermeasure for when he kept killing his creation for years and didn't expect it to turn on him, real smooth. Oh. Here's the guy who created Doomsday. Fantastic. I like the colors and style older comics had compared to the modern comics, which are glossy ice cream colors. Here we're talking about Top Cow Image Comics of the 90s, and I guess that's brought off by Todd McFarlane, Spawn, that sort of brought in all those glossy covers and all the. This is like before Adobe Photoshop. I guess I don't know what paint program he was using, but yeah, it was definitely digital. So, yeah, that's what you had to do back in the 70s and 80s to make it look special and different. Captain Marvel. There's of course the line art. I still like that though. That still looks pretty good. I like the bold line art that we get nowadays. It's not as glossy as if you guys ever read some of those Top Cow comics in the 90s. Oh God, Witchblade. It's basically everyone's Lara Croft. And like every character's Lara Croft. You're just like, all right. I mean, I'm not against it, but it's kind of redundant. So, yeah, I think maybe they should get these characters a bit more mature. Like I think Remy looks a bit too young there, but that's just me. Anyway, yeah, thanks for those wonderful shots. Thank you for the suggestion, guys. That was great compared to what we've been doing the past few weeks. Oh my God, this is a breath of fresh
So
air.
quick too.
It's quick. Guy knows his
Palette
stuff.
cleanser.
Wasn't
Nice palette
pretentious.
cleanser.
Wasn't
No.
hating on his fans or hating on the fans or this bullshit with the sex and whatever nonsense. Like, oh God, just a guy who likes his stuff. That's all we want. So good sir. Thank you, Mr. Martian Metal.
And thank you for the suggestion and people voting on it.
I'm happy it's popular. I'm happy it's got 188,000 views for such a simple. Like this is not a complicated big deal. This is some guy going, I like comics. Here's this art. There's that art. And I don't even think he did an amazing job. He just did a good job. And he picked good comics and good examples, and that was that. Done.
Yeah. We need more people like this.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
making good, simple videos. That's all it was. And honest. He's such an honest guy. I like that. So, thanks, guys. Yeah, keep the suggestions coming. Keep the voting going. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow if everyone's here. So, we will talk to you later. Thanks, Mike, for being here. I know you're busy, but hey, Always appreciate it. And
You're welcome.
the normal panel, as always, Keyframe Chopper and Whisp.